created everything. Look what a powerful being you are. You did these things, but now you're in a human body, you forget the power you have.
Welcome to Metamystics, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan, and today we have a very exciting guest, somebody who I have just been bewildered at the level of information, the deep dives, the rabbit holes that you've gone into. Welcome to the show, Perilous.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Dude,
it's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming and hanging out, dude. I'm really excited to understand some of the more deeper, esoteric, symbolic kind of things that you have been touching on your platform, and because I find it so fascinating, and just so it's kind of out in the open, through what lens are you looking at all of these occult symbols? I always like to know, like, what's the perspective?
Are you referring to my recent sigil reading video or my work with the Seder Square?
Well, I mean, really all of it, but you're looking at it through a Christian perspective?
Yeah, there's a term called Setic, like the foundation, so you want to start on a foundation of Christianity, because that's just the best type of spirituality. If you serve the Lord of Spirits, spirits will serve you. So a lot of people aren't starting from that foundation, so they're not able to grow as much as you would want to. They get about to the level where they can make money from it, and they say, "Okay, that's it." That's all they need to know. Yeah, they're not grotesque about the details, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So, I
You
mean,
have to come at it from a spot of purity. You have to say, God is real, Jesus is real, and this is a holy quest for knowledge. Okay, God can bless that. Okay, I'm a product of what God's blessings are. You know,
interesting. Okay. So
yeah,
you,
like
so and just to put it in, kind of layman terms, are you almost seeing Jesus as like a teacher, like a Merlin kind of character archetype?
uh, no, it's a physical embodiment of God. It's
Okay.
I don't know that I hate to just regurgitate it because I just heard it on like a reel, but
No, let's get weird, dude. I'm here for it.
uh Bereshit, the first Bereshit, the first word of the Bible can be translated as because of the firstborn. It doesn't just mean in the beginning. It has other Hebrew contexts that it can be delved into as. So it can be read as because of the firstborn, the lamb that was slain so that the universe could be created. So the implication is that the agreement is cosmic in a way. Jesus agreed to die so that we could be created, so that our sins could be forgiven.
Interesting. And I guess where I kind of get, I don't want to say hung up on, but I have a hard time understanding. And it's not from a judgmental point of view. It's just how it's able
Okay.
to click in my mind.
Okay,
So,
think of it like this. I got it for you.
all
Okay.
right.
Think of every Christian, like every serious Christian, as a conjurer of spirits. Okay. That's the only way you can conjure up Jesus and get to know him. You have to be able to know somebody intimately that died 2,000 years ago, and then was reborn, then ascended. You have to understand how all that could be possible. So every real Christian is a trained conjurer, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by real Christian?
Like someone who has an intimate personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right. No,
Yeah.
I'm not even coming at it from a judgmental perspective. I genuinely want to understand how this all works. So you're being able to conjure spirits through the understanding and belief in Jesus and the Father.
Um, no, I'm not doing that, but it's a lot easier to understand it that way. Think of the blood of Christ as the single most powerful occult tool. It's cleansing, it's all these things. Um, but I don't want to get too hung up on the details because there's a
Sure.
lot more information I could share with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know.
No,
But
no, that's a good foundational place to start at though. So I know where, what lens you're kind of coming from.
yeah, exactly.
All
So I'm
right.
coming from the Bible, basically. I was raised as a Baptist, and when I got into my 30s, I told my dad I was interested in, getting into demon summoning. He knew exactly what to do. My dad is so smart. So Baptists don't hold communion in too much regard. They might practice communion, but it's just a cracker. Okay. Now, if you think of demons, I'm a demon summoner essentially. Um, that's a Christian tradition. If you think of demons as ancient technology, uh, then and you happen to be raised Baptist, what my dad did was we went to an Orthodox Catholic church, and he told me to take bread. So I took some of the bread and I took it home, and you can summon demons with it. Okay, if you like burn it, if you bury it and ask it a question, a demon will come and will speak to you because you're committing the greatest sin possible by disrespecting, the body of Christ like that. You have committed the greatest sin, you know. But I happen to be a Baptist. I don't think that. It's a fucking cracker. Okay?
All right.
But a demon doesn't know that. So if I commit the greatest sin, a demon will then come when I call it. Okay. Now they want you to do other stupid stuff. They want you to like eat your own shit. They want you to like spread your blood on sigils and worship them and
Jesus.
hum in front of your furniture, but all you really need is your mind. Okay. You don't have to do ceremonial magic. I've never done ceremonial magic, not once
Heard.
in my life. Okay.
Okay. Because
Not even
all
when
of
I was
that,
doing the
all
six
of
month Abramelin ritual.
so all of that, and that's something that I've learned a little bit through this book called The Magician,
Mhm.
and written by, well, I can't remember what his first name, Philip Cooper.
Yeah.
But he wrote this book, and I started to understand the mind of a magician. And the way that he was saying, he goes, look, none of the tools that you're using, whether it's the chalice or the sword or the shield or any of that kind of stuff, none of it is magic in and of itself. It's all used as symbols so that you can almost use within your own inner temple. So yeah, I fully am there with you that uh, the kind of tools that you would use in the physical world are nothing more than subconscious symbols within your own mind anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And demons are just ancient technology of egoistic psychology, basically. That's how they kind of function. Now,
Okay.
when you get into Abramelin magic, it gets a little bit more complicated. Like, so I do Abramelin magic on my channel, on my page. And that's just something you don't see. Like, people speculate and they talk about the ritual, but like I work in book 3, I work with the magical squares. Like that's just not something you see. It comes from a practice called Timura. It's very secretive. So if you look in the Bible, it says you cannot take away from the Bible. You cannot take away from the word. You cannot use the word for your own power, and you cannot add to it. Okay? So that's our limits. We can't do that. Like, so we're using the Bible for magic. This is very ancient Torah magic. It comes from the Abramelin magic itself in book 3, you know. It comes from a period of time in Spain, particularly 13th and 14th century, where you couldn't own a Torah scroll. It was during Reconquista, the Spanish Inquisition. So what they did was they used uh, who were they? The Moors. They had these weird forms of phonetic algebra, so you could break down a Torah scroll into algebra basically and use it as a magical square. And
Okay.
you could study Torah that way freely. It was called crypto Kabbalah. It's very, very obscure. So I guess 17th and 15th century magicians, they found those and they were like, okay, what else does it say? And they figured out, okay, you can command the legions with this stuff. Like you
Wow.
really can. Yeah, you can use a Torah that's broken down in this way to command the unclean spirits. And now that's the most recent use of it, but the Iberian Peninsula had civilization since hunter-gatherer times. So, like, really, it was just laying around and they found a use for it, basically. So, who knows how old the technology
So
actually
it's
is.
probably ancient to even them.
Yeah, but it should be the first century. Okay, that's where it should be because that's, the early Christian mystics, like the schools of Mithra, like that's where it should be. But it's before that for some reason. Like we find it in Pompeii. So God only knows, you know.
Wow.
I have a theory that it's Torah before there was Torah. Because if you look at Melchizedek, he was priest of God Most High. What does a priest of God Most High does? He studies the Torah. He lays down the law. Well, Moses hadn't written the Torah yet. It was the times of Abraham. So there was Torah before Torah, basically.
Right. And that's kind of what you see, well, especially in the things that I've covered throughout the past few years doing this show, is that everything is essentially like a handed down or evolutionary version of some original text or teaching. That it
Yeah,
all
some
comes
special
from a
thing.
way earlier time, essentially.
Yeah, and looking at that way, you could say, is it, I don't know, is it Egyptian? Is it Atlantean? You know, I have some weird theories about Atlantean magic as well, but I won't get into that.
That we'll save that for another day because I'm super interested in uh, if Atlantis was real or not. Maybe it was mythological or fictional. Maybe it actually existed. I don't know. I like to keep an open mind with it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. What else did you want to discuss?
So, the Abramelin stuff. Are you referring? Because I remember a book. It was called Abramelin the Mage, right?
Yeah.
And there several books of that.
There's two known books that are, in circulation right now. There's the Mathers version, which is made by Samuel Mathers. There's a weird this tattoo I have on my hand. It's the first square, right?
Okay.
So in the Mathers version, he starts it with a D, starts and ends it with a D, you know, but you have to decode it. So in the other versions, the German ones, it starts and ends with an M. So Mathers switched it basically. He says, before you can do this, you gotta, these are his initials, MM, you know.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, I love all of this occult stuff and I really want to try and garner a better understanding of it all.
So
Um
if you wanted to get serious about doing the Abramelin, I would recommend using the McGregor Mathers version, not the Din version. The Din version is for historians. You know,
okay. All right.
you want to be able to work through those constraints.
Is it of your opinion that the early Christians were doing all of this and a lot of it was lost along the way or maybe pacified along the way?
Um, it's a very good question. Uh, I think I think the fact that we don't know what it was just shows that it was doing its job. It's called a cult for a reason. So you have to think who was using it and for what reason. So you have to think they were burning Christians for hundreds of years. They were hunting them down because Christianity was treated like madness. Okay. So if you really are mad on fire for Christ, these kind of things, mystical experiences are not that uncommon, I would say. I've had a lot of Christians who are, within the realms of madness themselves, basically. So, yeah, there were times where you had to practice Christianity completely in secret. So I could see like why this ancient technology would be used that way. It's really not that hard to do. I'll be honest with you. You have to like we have AI now, it's duh. So what people miss is there's phonetic shifting that has to take place. Okay, so you have to do the alt bat the at bash, mirroring of letters, Hebrew letters, so like this letter becomes this letter, and this letter becomes this letter, these kind of things. So that's the last thing you want to do. People think that's the first thing. No, it's the last thing. The first thing you want to do is phonetic shifting. Okay, it tells you in the Abramelin. People never read it. Like there's very simple constraints that you have to follow. And if you're within those constraints, all this opens up to you. But for some reason, only one out of 100 magicians that attempt it succeed. So I was able to succeed, thankfully.
Is it
But you
because
want
they
to know
don't
what
have a full
phonetic?
understanding of it?
No, they don't. Like I've always had great reading comprehension, even since I was a kid. I have a didactic memory. Another thing of magic I'm able to do is recall. I'm able to recall other lives, you know.
Yeah, I saw you did a video on the symbolism with the crab and the lion and the cow, and to be able to recall past lives. That's a very interesting kind of way of going about it. And I'm actually I do past life regressions through hypnosis and stuff. Have you ever heard of Dolores Cannon? I carry out her practice.
Oh,
Um
cool.
and it's a lot of it really is just the power of suggestion. That's really all your subconscious needs is a power of suggestion, and you need to be able to imagine it within your mind. And it's almost like these are almost like little keys to unlock doors that you didn't even know were essentially hidden within your mind to be able to access certain levels of information that you didn't know you had. And so whenever you're talking about the symbolism and the and holding the image of you with the crab and the cow and the lion, I'm like, I'm all the way here for that. Like that is right up my wheelhouse. I love that shit. That all that hypnotic stuff.
Yeah, shamanic walking and it's called Merkaba, but I'll be honest with you, when two people come together and talk about Merkaba, it's said that angels would come and listen because they want to know those mysteries too. So yeah, angels themselves come. But I think mine is more of a different way. So if you look at Ezekiel 10:20, the prophet, the only person to ever like witness the throne, he says that he sees the face of a man, which is the elevated form of Scorpio. He saw the face of a lion, saw the face of a cow, and the face of I believe it was an ox, something that was Aquarius. So Aquarius is man. Anyway, but so what you have to do is going back to the loophole. So you can't change the word of God, okay? To do magic with it, you can't change it, you can't take away from it, and we can't add to it, okay? But if you look in uh the rites of the temple, there's a thing called timera, which is exchange, okay? You can exchange it. Right, that's how this magic works. So when we're doing sacred magic, often it's about exchanging words and animals for some reason. So you take that because the way it's done specifically is they say one cannot, if one is vowed but then replaced, it shouldn't be replaced. But if it is replaced, then they both become holy. Okay. So you have one word that's holy, and you have another word that's a praxis for that word. Okay. You can't take that word away. You can't add to that word. But if one word that is vowed is exchanged for another word that is valid, because the Tanakh and the Temple and the Torah, they're all the same. They all follow the same law. So while there's not Jewish sacrifice anymore, the laws are still there, and they apply to the Tanakh. Okay, so that's how this magic becomes sacred. It's not heretical at all. It's very, very sacred. Okay,
Okay.
because one word can be exchanged for another word, and they both become holy. They just have to be handled in a certain way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this is and I feel like maybe a lot of people might look at this and say, "No, that's not the way," or anything like that, especially a lot of the I don't want to say new age Christians, but your typical Christian that is walking around
No.
just believing in God, just believing in Jesus, just saying, prayers, not really reading into the intricacies of the spoken word and the written word, everything that is within the Bible. I feel like, and that's why you said whenever you said real Christians, I'm like, man, I know a lot of Christians. I don't know if any of them would know any about any of this kind of stuff.
Uh, well, they're not searching. I find it's necessary because I don't know, I've encountered some dark people in my time,
Oh,
dude, like
dude.
some really messed up people. So I feel like,
And a lot of them are Christian. To
yeah, a
be
lot of
honest
them
with you.
just no. I feel like the research is necessary. Even if it is dangerous. That's why I call myself perilous. I'm the person who uh takes the risks, magically speaking. I don't really benefit. I don't sell anything. I don't have a Patreon, like nothing like that.
No, no, I fully get it. And that's one thing that I've always found so peculiar is whenever somebody says that they are, it doesn't even have to be Christian, any religion out there. They say that they're a religion, but they're not practicing it daily or learning more about it daily. They just almost rest on their own understanding of what it all is. And I'm like, I don't know if it's that simple. I feel like it's an ever growing understanding of the concept of what God is because I mean, I don't think that God or even Jesus for that matter is ever something that can ever be fully understood, right? Like not on a surface layer. You know what I mean?
Suffice it to say, there's a lot of work to be done. You know, the great work, as it's called, and my peers say that I may have enemies on TikTok, but they can't really say much when it comes to what I've contributed to the great work, and I only owe all that to God. Honestly, He has blessed me with so much knowledge, and I'm just grateful. All glory to the Most High.
Oh yeah, man. Sorry, I got the garbage truck. Is it just so happens that I have the garbage truck coming to pick up trash every day whenever I'm about to shoot. It's just one of those things. But anyway, we're gonna push on through. So it was something that you said earlier that was very interesting. You said that early in your understanding, you wanted to work with demons, and your dad helped you with that. Now, this is something that your dad has also been practicing for a long time as well.
Oh yeah. When I was younger, he said that he'd worked with he 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 said that he had read the Clavicles of Solomon, the Greater Keys of Solomon. He's referenced it before when I was younger, and he never really talked about it. But as I grew up, he revealed more things. He told me that I still don't know much, honestly. He wears a sigil of Lilith around his neck for some reason, and he told me that that represents a agreement between man and woman where you cannot break societal norms or you'll be punished. So basically this means women cannot hurt me as I wear this. Yeah, that's what that represents to him apparently. And he told me that while he was in nursing school, he had an altar to Morpheus because he wasn't sleeping enough. That's all he said. He wouldn't let me delve or nothing. But when I told him I wanted to get into demons, he knew exactly what to do. Yeah, and he taught me how to, look for fairies and, like interact with forest spirits when I was younger.
You
I
have the
told you,
coolest dad of all time, by the way. Like, damn, I wish my parents were that cool back in the day.
no, no, like if you don't give your kids, if you don't instill magic in people when they're young, they might kill themselves, So like you have to like really make people believe in magic. That's why Disney is important, you know. Otherwise there'd be a lot more suicides.
Dude, That's actually, I know that that's something that like we're laughing about, but I believe that all the way. That was something that inspired me. Like, dude, simple Disney movies or
Yeah.
things that like kind of stoke the imagination a little bit to see beyond the mundane, I feel like is some powerful stuff.
That's what I try to do with my TikTok channel. I never saw the I never saw the content I wanted to see growing up. It was always somebody selling something, somebody trying to get one over on somebody. I never got to see like uh, I wouldn't call myself a witch, but if I wanted to be doing witchcraft, like just I want to make the content that would like really inspire someone, like really impact someone, and just
No.
show them.
Yeah, no, and trust me, that's why I reached out to you because I was like, oh my God, this guy knows his stuff, and I can tell that you can, or I can tell that you do. Now, whenever you were, all right, so you said that essentially that demons are a technology. That was
Hmm.
a very interesting phrase, almost as if like it's a spiritual technology that you're able to work with and have things manifest for you.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it material things? Is it a deeper understanding of the more occult knowledge, all the above, or how does that work?
Okay, so during medieval times, when they started coming up with things like they started getting out of feudal times, so they had knowledge of what was clean. Okay. So when the brain adapts like that, this is ick, this is clean. This is where Kabbalah basically comes from. They were trying to map what this wiring, this technology that was clicking for them. You know, uh, they were like, okay, this is higher intelligence that's coming down to us because we figured out how to keep things clean. So with physical cleanliness came spiritual cleanliness. Okay. So this is where things like egoic psychology, you think about Monty Python, the Holy Grail. They say, I didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective. What? It's all this confusion of feudal times because the existence was just so freaking miserable that your psyche is so fractured, that your consciousness is just so dim. So as cleanliness comes, people's consciousness starts waking up, and with that comes demons, basically. You know. So yeah, so demons are maps of what this higher consciousness is, gifts from God. That's why they associate them with different God names, different angels. So
So why do people nowadays look at demons as if it's something evil? Like even dude, I tell you what, I cover a lot of alien stuff, a lot of the videos that people are getting of the orbs in the sky and they're like clearly it's demons and they associate it with evil. Like can you clarify that or are people just misunderstanding what the fuck is going on?
uh, I can describe for you the demons of the Abramelin system. They don't require invocation. They're like presences in the room, you can feel it like out here, and if you have the purity, you can see it here, like up here. It's yellowish. They resemble dinosaurs, kind of. They have presences like dinosaurs, black scaly skin. Uh,
Reptilian of sort.
you could say that, yeah.
All right.
But they don't require invocation. I've done some stupid things with Abramelin magic and seen some strange things, you know. Uh, but I think people are looking at demons from a Christian lens. That's why demonolatry is so interesting now because they're thinking if I worship this thing, which you should never worship anything but God. I think that is the dumbest thing in the world, worshiping demons. But they think if I worship this thing, I'll be rewarded. So they're approaching it from an evangelical lens, basically. They
Right.
view everything as I want to be evil now. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. Like working with demons because it is the original Christian way. Like, dude, that is fucking mind blowing to me just on the surface. because it's always been something that has been so bastardized. And I've always been of the opinion that it's, the Bible in general is wholly misunderstood. Like, and maybe there are levels to it. I believe within Judaism they have, I can't remember what it's called, but they essentially say that there's four ways to look at the Torah, or there's four ways to look at the Bible.
Right.
And there's like the surface level way, there's the esoteric way, exoteric, and then the spiritual understanding. I can't remember exactly which order, but essentially there's many of different ways to read the same exact text. And there are certain, like, almost, the deeper your understanding goes, the more keys you get to unlocking doors to knowledge and things of the sort. And that's why I've always been so fascinated, because you look at all the different tribes around the world, and you mention Zulu,
Mhm.
and like, it just seems that people are using the Bible in many of different ways and are getting results, which, to me, in my mind, says that there's more than one way to skin a cat here.
Yeah, okay. So I get what you're getting at. There is a type of Christianity that predates the line of Abramelin. I mentioned Sedek before. That comes from the word Melchizedek. Uh, Basically, Melchizedek mogs Abraham. Like Melchizedek mogs Abraham. So if you're a Christian, the spirits of Christianity, all that is in service to you. You break bread with Abraham. So if the line of Abraham becomes corrupted, like it kind of has today, uh, then there is somewhere to go. And Jesus is a priest by the order of Melchizedek. Like that's what it says in the Torah. That's what it says in the Bible. He was a priest by the order of Melchizedek, which is strange because, like, were they what, 7,000 years apart or something like that? Like,
Right.
yeah. So there's a hidden priesthood, basically. Like I'm a lot like a priest. Like there's a purification to it.
Is there, because I've heard, especially within people that do the past life regressions, Dolores Cannon, all of her stories, that the secret, I don't know if it was a priesthood, but are you talking about like the Essenes?
Uh, hmm, hmm, it's a good question. Well,
I don't know if it was like a mystery school or what, but it seemed to be like a brotherhood, or not even necessarily a brotherhood, because I believe that there was women in there too, but you know what I'm trying to say.
yeah, first century Judaism, basically. They were a death cult. They jumped on Roman swords because they thought the world was ending. That's where Merkaba magic comes from. So even if you are able to unlock those very high level schools that are presented to you, like when you explore Merkaba magic, which it's kind of difficult, but even if you are able to, you should keep that in mind. The people that invented this magic thought the world was ending. So whatever information it reveals to you, take it with a massive grain of salt.
Right, right. One thing that, and I don't know if you even dive into any of this kind of stuff, but yeah, one thing that I find fascinating is that it seems that whenever Jesus was alive, within the four main gospels where he's mainly talked about,
Mhm.
that he's saying one thing, and then he dies, and Paul essentially, meets him on the road to Damascus and sees like Jesus' spirit, and it seems like the tone of how he's interpreting Jesus is entirely different than the tone that Jesus was initially trying to teach. Do you think that, was he actually seeing and talking to Jesus, or is that even anything that you get into? It seems to be that there's a lot of people that are talking about it, and it seems like there's a split in understanding with that.
I meditate on the Seder Square. So Seder Square is it's a hidden gospel. Doesn't mention that part, but I can understand how the guy would have felt. It's very necromantic in a way.
Right.
So yeah, what Jesus would have said there could have could have varied. But in the Seder Square, it says simple things like let's see. I remember one was Shiloh Akrepa Tenedapararotos, which is uh upon his brow was placed a crown of thorns.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm pulling it up here so people know what I didn't know what a Seder square was or even how to spell it.
yeah.
Um, so essentially
So
this, right?
yeah, so it can be read as Shiloh Akrepa Tenet Apeirotos, which is upon Shiloh his Akrepa brow, Tena lifted, Opera thorned, Rotos crown. Upon his brow was lifted a thorned crown. And you could say sour wine. So arepo is also apostatso, which is Greek for distillate. So sator can also be sour, phonetically shifted. So sour wine, tinta pararotos, was lifted to his open mouth. Okay. Then you could say Seter. No, you could say Soter, which is German. So Soter Arepo, our Savior walked, and this is funny. Tenet, and it's up and down, so it makes a cross.
Yep.
So with a cross, our Savior Arepo to encroach or to walk forward. Our Savior walked tented across with his cross, operarotos, to die on a hill or to bleed on a rock. So it's a hidden gospel. How
Whoa.
else can it be read? It can be read so many ways. Salem arepo. So let's see, at Salem, wine, and tenet can also be read as limel, which is bread. So at Salem were wine and bread and a portion of the war. Okay, so this is what was shared with Abraham by Melchizedek. Okay, so it was at Salem where wine and bread were in a portion of the war were shared because he tithed 10% to Melchizedek after the war in the Valley of the Kings where he defeated Satan. See, what else can it say?
Just before you go on to the next one, very interesting. The one that you said about the sour wine pouring into his open mouth.
Yeah,
Just to get really weird here, it is said that Jesus or some of the people that were his followers were essentially drinking, um, what is the word? Drinking some kind of spiked wine of sorts, right? That there was some kind of
yeah, it's
uh,
called
uh
gall.
the ergot, right? The ergot that they have found at the bottom of certain chalices that allowed them to essentially see extra dimensionally of sorts. Do you believe that that's what was going on, and how a lot of these people were able to find a lot of this kind of knowledge was by going into these deep hypnotic, like psychedelic trance states?
No, I'm gonna stop you right there. Jews don't drink gall. Gall was something that Romans drank.
Okay.
So even if they are drinking sour wine, no, they drank fresh wine. They were Jews, like high class people. They're not drinking sour wine. Romans are drinking sour wine. That's why they gave it to Jesus. But that's an interesting theory.
Okay.
But no, I'm sorry, Jews don't drink sour wine.
Heard
Um,
that. Okay. Yeah. Just I wanted to try and maybe tie something together there, but I'm still
no,
learning.
it's like you should hear that and cry, honestly. Like, yeah, like a crowned thorn, he died on a hill in sour wine. And it also says, our Savior, Arepo Tenet, who walked beside us, Opera Rotos, on land and on rushing water. Our Savior who walked beside us on land and on rushing water, who died on a hill in sour wine, was lifted to his open mouth after he carried a cross to a hill to die you know. And also where he died, apparently that's where Adam was buried. So he was, when it says Rotos, they say that the head of Adam is buried at that place. That's why it's called Golgotha, which means the head.
Yes, I've heard that before. So interesting if that's true.
It would
It
be.
I mean, it all seems like Jesus's entire life, or at least the story of his life, was very uh like occult in a sense. Like there were steps to his life that had to be taken out in order to carry out like an occult practice of sorts.
Yeah. There's all kinds of strange parallels in the Bible that they talk about. For instance, when Abraham, he was tested to see if he would uh, walk his son carrying wood on his back. If he would walk his only son to die on a mountain, like for his God. So Abraham was an astrologer. He looked up at the sky and he says, "Oh, God wants a sacrifice. What he wants my son?" That said, okay. He was testing to see if like he believed the promises that he was given. And he did. And that's why Isaac was spared, and Isaac went on to be a very magical person. He the same way, Kabbalistically speaking, Isaac represents the numbers between the numbers 1 and 4. This is the card, the Hierophant. So you think, okay, Isaac was taken just to the point where he would be killed, and then he was given mercy. Okay, so the number one is no, he exists in 2 and 4, between the numbers 2 and 4. So the number 2 represents trial and error. So, he was taken to the point just where he would give in mercy, and then it changed. So then, so the numbers 2 and 4, he had to find a wife that was within the promised land. Okay. He couldn't leave this area, so he had to send out a servant to find a wife. So you see the numbers 2, Isaac and Rebecca, and the numbers 4, the Holy Land. 4 represents the land. It's a square. So,
Oh my God, dude. I feel like I'm not even equipped to understand most of what you're saying. I'm not like, I fully believe that you are very well versed in a lot of this, but man, for a beginner, this sounds like a foreign language. I love it
uh,
though.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure to you, it's like, duh, how do you not know this kind of stuff? But, you've been in it since you were a Ute. How old are you?
Oh, I'm in my 30s, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We're the same then.
well into my 30s.
Dude, this is so crazy. All right. So I want to get to and maybe you answered it a little bit earlier before, but how are you using the demons in order to help you conjure? Like whenever you are using demons to conjure, what is your plan that you're trying to carry out there?
Oh, well, it's a good question. So lately I've been working with a forbidden magical square. Uh, in the Abramelin, there's a few chapters that you shouldn't go into. They're labeled, "This is used just for evil," and one's labeled to cast spells on a man. Another one's labeled to cause diseases in children, and one's labeled, "This just should never be used." So that's the one I've been meditating on lately. Um, and my favorite thing to do with it is I told you that they don't wait to be invoked. They're ever present. So you can just say the words. It's a lot like how the Testament of Solomon was done. Like if you read Testament of Solomon, he doesn't talk about, okay, I drew a circle on the ground, or I did. No, he had a ring and he said, okay, bring me the next one, and then he talked to it. Okay, that's a lot how it's done here. You're just talking. Like there's no circles, there's no candles, there's nothing. Like you just talk. And there's a lot of blindness to overcome. So you have to learn how to use God names differently. Uh, I can pull it up for you. So throughout the Bible, different characters use different God names, and they have different powers, different abilities. And if you learn how to use them correctly, for instance, let's say, okay, Moses used the name Abaddon when he was doing the 10 plagues of Egypt, and he laid down a plague that took all the firstborn. He did that by calling God by the name Abaddon. Okay.
Okay.
When he did the locust, he used the name Adonai. When he wanted darkness, he called the name Pantheon. So you say these names, and it has a certain effect on your nervous system. You pay very close attention to
A
this.
certain resonance.
Exactly. Yeah. So this opens up this world that you normally would have of blindness. And you can you can call demons pretty crudely this way, but when you get into Abramelin magic, once you start, like your nervous system is immediately going on fire. You feel other presences in your room. Like it's very real. Yeah, it's super sacred magic. I don't know why it's so readily available. Probably because the average person just can't do it,
Right.
you know? But if you follow the instructions, there's no reason you shouldn't. Just nobody does it. It's super dangerous. I don't like, but no, it's 39.99 on Amazon right now. It'll be here tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this stuff is probably difficult for the layman to interpret and then to be able to put into practice, which, to your point, is probably why it's so easily and readily available, because most people wouldn't know how to put it into practice.
I really shouldn't talk about this on your podcast because it's dangerous, but there's a book more that I study that's worse than that. Should I talk about it?
Let's go to the danger zone.
Okay. So there's a book that drove John Dee crazy. It's called The Alderea. It went missing for like 300 years, but for some reason, in 1997, they found it because it also goes by the name Soiga. So they were looking for the Book of Soiga, and they found two copies in the British Library when they said, "Oh, it's also called Alderea. Let me look that up. We have two copies." And it was just missing for 300 years before that. But it's rumored that it kills its reader. It's a book that kills its reader. Yeah, there's even a section where they teach you how to cast your horoscope in this certain way, and it will tell you exactly how much time you have left to live if you are reading this book. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's the Book of Soiga. And get this, you cannot get a physical copy. You cannot get a physical copy. There is one PDF by one scholar that is available right now, and it has protections on it. I've tried to crack them, I tried to hack them, you can't. And if you try to get one printed, they're not formatted right, so all the words drift off the page. So I've looked into getting it printed, you can't. And so it's printed. So it's the PDF is done, Latin, then English, the translation, then Latin, then English. It's very tedious to read, but and it's super complicated too.
So
Basically,
is it like it's kind of like a suicide book?
no, it's a book of magic. It's a book of magic. They say it came from Adam. Like it was said that Adam was given this book, basically. Yeah, you don't kill yourself with it. Just the apparently the knowledge inside of it erodes you so much. I don't know. It hasn't been studied.
Oh.
It's just now available.
So
So I've
like,
been
would this
reading
be
it.
like the knowledge that the serpent gave Adam and Eve?
It could be. There's tables in the back that are built up of these magical Latin words. So it's only as old as the Latin language could have been, which who knows. But it probably dates back to the times of the Tower of Babel, more than likely. But John Dee wanted to be able to read the books of Soiga. So if you look at John T's tables, yeah, the four corners, the four watchtowers, the first one is base level alphabet. The next one is the letter shifted down one. Then the next one is the letter mirrored. Then the other one is the letter shifted up one letter. Okay. So, and there's a lot of repeating letters, but basically, so he could comb through the book of Soiga, the tables, and he could look for barbarous names of angels. And because there's four different parallels inside of it. Okay. So he's seeing base alphabet, he's seeing mirrored alphabet, shifted one, shifted down. That's basic Tamura. He didn't do any of the phonetic shifting, and he didn't correct the tables because there are corrected tables that you can read. If you look at them, you have nightmares. I'm not even joking. Yeah, you can get the corrected tables of Soiga in another PDF. You look at them and they're shiny. They have faces of demons in them. You're gonna have nightmares. It's not good. Do
What?
not look at the corrected tables. But in the other version, the version John Dee was using, he doesn't have corrected tables, so he wasn't successful in most of his work. So he combed looking for barbarous names of angels, which he would tell to his scam scryer. And anyway, that's how we got the Enochian alphabet.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
the flawed tables.
And see, I know that, or it's at least rumored that John Dee was working for Queen Elizabeth.
Um, yeah, he was for a short time, but then he it's really stupid. He casted her horoscope. Something that looks like this. This is a horoscope. Okay.
Okay.
It's a Jewish version, but like this is a horoscope, so no one fucks with me really. But so he drew one of these. It's a little square with like seven things. You know, he did that for Elizabeth so that he could learn things about her. And that got him locked up in prison, basically. And he got completely discredited after that. And his name was dragged through the mud. So his reputation suffered. It's a lot like how social media is nowadays, actually. Like you fuck up one time, that's it.
Oh yeah, canceled.
Yeah.
So basically, he learned something about her that he wasn't supposed to learn, and so she dragged his name through the mud.
You cannot cast a horoscope for a public figure. Not back then. No.
Wow.
No. He thought he had privileges. He did not.
So what? They found out? Like, how would they have found out?
Uh, just I guess what he was doing with her, got around. She told somebody, "Oh, he did this." She must have told one of her religious hand people that, "Oh, John Dee did this lovely thing. What did he do? Burn him." Yeah,
And
that's what happened.
that seems like a different kind of looking horoscope. Do you
Yeah,
believe?
these are medieval horoscopes, basically. So, this is how you do a horoscope for magic. This is how they did it in the 12th century. If you read the book Christian Astrology by William Lilly, it's the only book in English that details arcane astrology like this. Like everything else is in some other weird language, like so this kind of ancient like astrology that's used for magic, you got to read that book. You got to read William Lilly, which is weird because he's a dying author. Like he had consumption or something, and he keeps laughing about it throughout the whole book. So
Oh my god, dude. I want to learn as much as I possibly can from you. Like this is this is wild. I've never heard the Bible looked at in this way. Now, of course, we've had magicians and witches and whatnot here on the show, but to this level, I actually have a buddy who would know a lot more about what you're talking about than obviously than what I would know. Have you ever heard? There's this guy. His name is Lord. He goes by the name Lord Byron Jester. Um,
very
he's he's really into a lot of magic and occult kind of things, and he's somebody who I have on pretty regularly, a good friend of the show, and he has brought up a lot of the things that you're talking about right here. It- would you be interested in coming back on and having and with him so that maybe he'd be able to kind of bounce off a few ideas and whatnot?
yeah, we can work that out.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah, just so because I feel like you get it from more people, it's easier to kind of disseminate, not disseminate, but to understand a little bit more. All right, I know that we're coming up here on the hour. I do have a question for you. With a lot
Sure.
of the, and I don't know if this is even something that you look into, but a lot of the orb kind of things that people are seeing out in the sky, I myself have seen them, and not a bird, not a plane, not a shooting star, not an asteroid, not a planet. It seems to
Mhm.
be almost like a wandering star of sorts. And I always like to ask people what their interpretation of what the fuck is going on up in the sky with all that. I don't know if you've looked into the guy named Chris Bledsoe who has been
Yeah.
seeing a lot of this kind of stuff. What do you believe is going on with that? What is that to you?
I used to ride motorcycles out in Marfa when I was a teenager. So it's really nothing. Like they have the Marfa lights out there. So like honestly, the scenery is more interesting. Like
Then
the beauty of this scenery is more interesting. It's completely mundane. It's not spooky at all. Like you don't feel the jitters that you would in any kind of paranormal situation. Like I've been out in Marfa motorcycle riding. It's God's country. It's wonderful. Might be angels, who knows? Like maybe the angels are coming down trying to like, clean up after it. Because they say that areas like that are God's palate. Like I've vacationed in, you know, uh Yosemite State Park and um Tolingua was like it's like God's palette. Like this mountain is this color, that mountain's a completely different color. His paint just dried up, you know.
Right.
So yeah, think of them like little angels going and just they were the angels that were bad, so they got to go pick up the shit that he left at creation.
Oh my God. Yeah, because I see people like, sounds kind of strange, but almost like telepathically communicating with them. And whenever somebody is, and I've seen people summon them, like it's the craziest
Oh yeah.
thing. And
Uh, I met my holy guardian angel. I still meet it every Saturday. Now, it doesn't come as an apparition. It came as an apparition once. It actually came before I started my Abramelin ritual, which is strange. So I think what's important is the encounter with the angel. But a few years before I started it, in the same location actually, I came home one night and it was a strange situation before that. I guess I'll tell the story. A friend that I grew up with, we had another friend that died in a car accident, and this dude, my friend Dylan, he kept crashing his car. Yeah, this was like the third car that he like got that he drove drunk and just crashed. And I was so worried about him. I was like, I don't want to lose another friend. So I got two friends together who also happened to be Christian mystics, and we prayed together. And I had beatific visions, and I cried as hard as I could because I was just so worried about my best friend, like because I didn't want to lose another friend. He was like my brother. And when I got home that night, there was an angel sitting on my bed. Yeah, it looked blue, um, very luminescent, but it's an apparition. You don't want to look too close at it. And I sat next to it, and I was so puzzled, and I was like, "Is this Jesus?" Because I hadn't really been doing any magic or anything like that. But yeah, I sat down there next to it, and then it was gone. I was just completely confused. But it still comes every Saturday, as per the Abramelin tradition, but it comes as a presence. It comes as insight, basically, an opening of the sphere of Kether, the Kabbalistic spheres. So if I want to meditate on something very complex, I'll typically wait for the angel. He comes every Saturday morning, and I feel his presence. If there's something I'd want to command, I would ask him and he would tell me. But like, there's no like the Crowley experience isn't really real. And it's kind of like hearing someone in the next room, I guess. If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I was getting ready to ask. So as far as the HGA or the Holy Guardian Angel, it, I've heard it referenced through Crowley, but essentially I've heard it also referenced that the Holy Guardian Angel is your higher self. Is that bullshit or is that for real?
Okay, I can explain it to you. So the name of the god that the angel serves is Elion. Okay. Now, that can also phonetically be shifted to Elyot, the writer. So these are the angels that wrote the Bible, basically. So they adhere to Torah. Um, they love Torah. They come to scholars who study Torah. And during the times of the 13th century, when Torah was forbidden, and you'd get the rack if they found a Torah scroll on you, and you'd be forced to convert. Lots of people were forced to convert. This was a Christian art that they could do, and they were suffering and they were persecuted, so angels assisted them. Now, the god Elion, I believe, comes from Canaanite pantheology. I can't be sure, but I believe it's Canaanite pantheology. Elyon was the highest god, and he had messengers because the only way to reach him would be to have a messenger. You have to have a courier for something that far away. He is the highest form of life. You know, he's the highest god there is, the highest intelligence. So uh, that's the god of this Kabbalist. I don't worship Ein Sof. People say Kabbalists, they love Ein Sof. No, no, I worship Elyon. Get it right. You know? So that's what that is. It's a god from the Canaanite pantheology that has messengers because he's so far away.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
One final question I have for you, and this is something that I'm really trying to incorporate into my own life, is the idea that everything is one, that there is no fracture of anything, that there is almost like a divine oneness, that everything is of God. Do you come from that belief?
Okay, so that comes from basically Platonistic schools of thought. They believed in the monad and everything ascended from a monad.
Right.
So they believe that everything is indistinguishable from oneness. So the same way you can't prove that anything exists extant to the brain, that's the relationship everyone has with consciousness. That's the collective monad.
Right.
So that's not too hard to explain. The sphere of Kether as a one uh, would be divine creativity. So in the Abramelin system, it's an epithet of the sphere of Kether. It's Temera. So Temera de Temerin, as the Zohar calls it, it's the concealed art of the most concealed. So it's an epithet of the highest sphere. So they give you something sacred, you be creative with it. So that's the function of the oneness in Kabbalah.
Gotcha. Man, I feel like there is so much studying I got to do to try and even get somewhat close to your level. You are so full of knowledge. Thank you for coming today, dude. Pleasure talking to you. This was so much fun. I really hope to be able to do it again. Like I said, with our buddy Lord Byron Jester, he would have a better understanding than I do for sure. But thank you for coming, dude. This was an absolute blast. If you could let our listeners know where they can find you, where could they find you at?
Yeah, I'm Sacred Mage on TikTok, at Sacred Mage, or also known as Perilous. You can search Perilous and you'll see me. Uh, oh, can I give a shout out to my friend Lux Angus? Follow Lux Angus on TikTok. He's brilliant. He's a very brilliant young man and an Austrian vampire. I'm actually going to talk to him later this week. But thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. You have a good night.
All right, thanks, man. You too. Holy shit. What did I just hear? What did I just listen to right now? These are some of the deeper, more occult people out there that I'm just absolutely fascinated by. I don't look at any of this as good or evil. Like, get out of that polarity, that duality. I'm befuddled how somebody could have such a great understanding of all that. I mean, think about it. He was a little kid and went and asked his dad about how to use demons. Christian mysticism is on some extra shit, man. Like, oh my God, I did not know what I didn't know. Wow. What a fascinating individual. I cannot wait to have Lord Byron here with that. I think I need somebody in the middle for that kind of conversation. Because Lord Byron has a good way of being able to break things down so that the layman can understand, which is why we always like to have him on here. And I know a lot of you initiates love him, and that's why we keep on bringing him back, because he is very knowledgeable, but also down to earth and knows how to translate the seeming gibberish, at least to the unacknowledged or the uninitiated mind. That's what I try and say. There's levels to all of this. There's so much, knowledge to be gleaned from. And I just want to soak it all up. Not even to say to try and put it into practice, but he's talking about, first of all, I have never in my life heard that you are supposed to work with demons in Christianity. My God. Do people really not understand what is going on with that? I believe that too. The entire story never really made sense. You know, if God created everything, why would he create demons? It makes no sense. The idea of demons rebelling against God, if God created everything, then there is no such thing as any kind of, I'm not even going to go into that. It's all bewildering. Hopefully you guys got something from that. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that and then probably listen to it again. I actually bought the Abramelin the Mage book, I don't know, 2 years ago. And only because I heard Lord Byron bring it up. And even Lord Byron was like, yeah, you know, it's really not that evil. It's not that crazy. You know, I've read into it. And that's why I was like, dude, I got to get Byron on here because he knows a little bit about this kind of stuff. It's not my wheelhouse. I'll be honest with you. I'm not super into the Christian mysticism. Not my wheelhouse whatsoever. I'm more into the esoteric, the other side of things. But why not try and garner somewhat of an understanding of all of it? Man, the whole time I was just imagining, dude, if Sean was here, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because that's exactly how I was. So yeah, we didn't really have a whole lot of time today with him. I think that people like that are very protective of their energy. And if you notice, that's why these people, they go by certain names. I asked him what his age was. He goes, I'm in my 30s. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that. In my opinion, it's because they don't want any curses or sigils or anything or hexes like that laid upon them. If you don't know the name, you don't know the age, you know, you don't know where he lives or anything like that, then you're never going to be able to lay any kind of bad curse upon them. And so yeah, that was so interesting just to see how protective they are. And to be honest, you know, we've had conversations with the witch. We've had her on one time. I'm going to be getting her on again soon. Nevermore Aries from TikTok. And she says, you know, you should go with, you know, a witch name or a magic name or something like that. So that way people can only curse the name, and the name is essentially like a barrier. Your magical name is your protection. Then of course I'd have to go around deleting my name from everywhere and just go by this alias kind of magic name. I don't know. I want to know what you guys think. I might need help coming up with a magical name. And I'm actually very interested in it. And I don't think that it's something that I would want to come up with. I feel like names are something that you should be given and not necessarily come up with your own. You know, it's like you should never come up with your own nickname. Otherwise, you're just, I don't know, it's corny. It's kind of douchey. Maybe I'll have Lord Byron on, or maybe Nevermore Aries, get her back on. Or some of the other witches. Maybe there's something that we can do to conjure up what my name is, my angelic name or my magical name. Dude, this is getting next level. And to be honest, maybe it really isn't such a good idea for me to have my name out there, because there are a lot of people within this realm that are absolutely doing some evil ass shit. Yeah, that's a real thing. I don't even fully understand it, but I know that it's a real thing. I guess that's kind of the scary part. Man, I don't know. This just got me thinking. I wanted to go into so much more with him, but I mean, I just couldn't fucking comprehend a lot of what he was saying. Very fascinating guy. Like, this guy is extremely knowledgeable. I don't look at him as somebody who's crazy at all. This guy absolutely knew what the fuck he was talking about. So, man, go and follow him. Try and see if you can follow him on some of the rabbit holes that he goes down on TikTok. By the way, that's actually where I get a lot of the guests from. He was asking me, he goes, do you get a lot of your guests from TikTok? I'm like, yeah, I do. Because, whenever I search social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, whatever, YouTube, it is to try and broaden my own understanding through their information and their research and everything. But also, I'm looking for people to come on the show who can kind of broaden my understanding and broaden our understanding here on this show. Because I think that there's no such thing as too much information. Because, of course, you're never going to be able to work with all of it. And that's the thing about this show, is that I want to try and bring as many facets of spirituality, magic, witchcraft, philosophy, all of it to this show. And we're trying to find a foundational truth. And I think that you can't really form an entire picture unless you have many of different philosophies and wisdoms bestowed upon you. That's kind of the way that I look at it. Some people will look at that as evil. He is somebody that practices Christian mysticism. Maybe he looks at, I don't know, Hermeticism as stupid. That's okay. I don't even think that there's anything necessarily wrong with only looking through one lens, because these things, they have grimoires. He brought up how many books, Abramelin the Mage, and all the different books from Abramelin, and was bringing up like the Keys of Solomon and the Kabbalah and Ein Sof and all that stuff, which is all Christian and Jewish mysticism, Abrahamic magic, essentially. And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at it through that lens, but there are plenty of lenses to look through. And I'm just going to say this, where I'm at right now, I do not believe that any one lens is wrong or bad or stupid or evil. I don't know what I don't know. I've never devoted myself to one thing or another. I was telling him a little bit beforehand that I had just joined the Rosicrucians. But there are two different breeds of Rosicrucianism. There is the Christian mystic side, and then there is the esoteric occult side. I chose the esoteric occult side, which dates back to ancient Egypt, whereas the Christian mysticism dates back to like old Judaism. And it's just coming from two different schools of thought. Again, I don't think there's any one right way or one wrong way. But whenever you're looking at it through a specific lens, maybe that is how you have to look at it in order to deepen your own understanding and what you actually believe in. A lot of it is psychology. And that's kind of what he was talking about too. Psychology, as far as, look, you don't need to eat your own shit. You know what I mean? Which I didn't even know was a thing. That's weird and strange and gross. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be judging those people. You eating your own shit, I'm going to judge you a little bit. That's just weird. It's wrong. And I also wanted to ask him, how much is he able to see a lot of this Christian mysticism or satanic mysticism laid upon this world, on the grander scale, on the grander stage within politics and world politics, or, anything of the sort, whether it's in movies or music or what have you. Because there does seem to be a occult flair to just about everything out there. And most people will look at it as, well, they're just trying to be, edgy. They know that it'll get people's attention. But the magic, in my opinion, is the things that will grab your attention. Because our attention is our energy. And if we're giving our attention and we're giving our energy to symbols that we can't fully comprehend, it is essentially loose stealing or loose harvesting of sorts. Now, maybe you feel that doesn't apply to you. I don't even know what to do with it, to be honest with you, but I can tell you one thing, whether it's being taken from you or not, it is a belief that they hold in their mind, and they believe that subconsciously, whenever you look at a symbol, that it is stealing your energy, it's stealing your attention, and thus powering up the sigil or powering up the craft or whatever it is they're trying to carry out. And it seems to work. Now, I don't know how far that goes. Y'all know I've been in the conspiracy circle for quite a long time, looked into a lot of different things. It would not shock me if that is what is truly going on. I just want to know a little bit more about it before I say one way or another. I'm very open-minded to everything out there. I try not to look at everything through a skeptic point of view, a strictly skeptic point of view. Of course, I look at everything skeptically because I think that you need to remain grounded and somewhat logical. But I think that if you're too grounded and you're too logical, you're missing the forest for the trees, and a lot of this stuff will go over your head. So you have to remain with an open mind. There's like this head. If you're watching on Patreon, there's like this head that's popping up behind me. It's not a ghost, I promise. I have a green screen and there's a TV behind me that's on. But anyway, all right, and I didn't even get a chance to do the tarot because I didn't want to take any time away from learning from him. He only had an hour. I was like, all right, let me try and squeeze this squeeze this fruit for all the juice I can get. So give me 1 second and we'll pull a tarot here in a sec. All right, we got that card, and it is the Three of Wands, which is pretty interesting. I don't think we pull that one very often, but it says, adventure lies ahead of you. As you expand into a new role or identity, you have plenty of support. Interesting verbiage there. Filled with ambition and excitement, you're ready to expand into the next phase of your adventure in the Three of Wands card. The man depicted in this card has his back turned, which means that as the viewer, you see what he sees. He stands between two wands planted in the ground while he holds the third for support. He gazes towards ships on the water, indicating the expansive nature of his dealings and suggesting that he works well with a team. The support of others allows him to conserve his energy without burning out and positions him to direct his considerable prowess toward big picture tasks. Okay, the spiritual message behind it says surrounding yourself with inspiring people will help you expand to the next level of personal growth. You are expanding your spiritual practice, whether you have the support of a community or you are calling in new friendships. Consider making travel plans that will expand your horizons and inspire you. I gotta say, that's exactly what Perilous did. I mean, it made the things... Here's the thing. Like I said, been doing this shit for quite a while, right? And some might say, especially the enlightened ones and the sages and the gurus and the mystics that have been doing it their entire lives, that 2 or 3 years is nowhere near the amount of time that it takes to garner a full and complete understanding. And I would agree. That's why I am devoting my practice of doing this show until my last breath. That is 100%. 1,000% going to happen. I cannot get enough of it because I've been doing it here for, coming up on 3 years, and everything that he just said, I'll say, 85% of what Perilous just talked about, I had no fucking clue what he meant. But that's the kind of people you need to be around in order to kind of broaden your own understanding with this kind of stuff. So big shout out to Perilous. What an absolute stud. I cannot wait to do it with him again. So, yeah. All right. Well, look, as I said before in the last episode, we are implementing the meditation back into the show. Only because I think that it serves as a foundational practice. And me specifically, if I don't incorporate it into a show, I tend to get a little lackadaisical on it, which I need to stop doing that. And I shoot 5 shows a week. That's guaranteed. I'm doing 5 meditations a week, minimum. And that's something that I definitely want to get back to. I think that it is the most powerful and positive thing that you could ever do for yourself. I don't think there's anything that supersedes it. Because I think that once you know thyself and you kind of get out of the place of mind where you're selfish and you care about materialistic needs and all this other kind of trash. We need to get beyond that. Go beyond the materialistic world, because look, we're only material. We're only physical for what? 60, 70, 80, 90 years, 100 if you're super lucky. What are you going to do with all this other materialistic physical shit whenever you die? Why not have some information that you can learn that you actually can take with you? And I believe that we do take these things with us. Now, I don't know what the forgetfulness spell that we accepted on our way back into this body was, But what's fascinating is that whenever you learn about a lot of this information, it's not learning as if it's something brand new. Now, with Perilous, that's a different story. I mean, that's deep occult secrets. And maybe even that starts to become familiar as if, it's resonating at a deeper layer of your own soul, which you almost forgot. But I feel like a lot of this information is a subtle remembering. And that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to remember. That is the key, is trying to remember. Because I believe that a lot of us, especially people that are listening to this show, this is not your first time hearing this information. There's a reason why you're attracted to information like this. You're attracted to conversations like this. You're attracted to people like this, because something within you resonates so deep that it almost seems foreign to maybe some other people. Now, maybe it's because in a past life you were so-and-so, or maybe you took up a practice in a past life, or maybe you're doing astral journeys or deep meditative journeys, or maybe you're on psychedelic journeys, however you're getting there. And a lot of this stuff seems to resonate with what's going on in there. And so it, sparks a level of interest, sparks some curiosity within you, and it makes you want to kind of follow those breadcrumbs, because it seems that there is a remembering. And I believe that that's why things resonate, because of the remembering that goes on. So hopefully you guys are having fun on this journey, because I know I definitely am. Look, if you want to be able to get these shows days in advance, come over to patreon.com/metamystics. The link's down in the show notes below. There's several different tiers. If you want to sign up for just being able to get all the shows completely commercial free, days in advance, join the community, it's $3.33 a month. We can't even make it cheaper than that unless we go free. But we're trying to form a community over here. And so I appreciate everybody who has already signed up. Thank you, good initiates out there. I love you forever. And thank you for coming on this journey, dude. It's been a fun one. I'm still fascinated by the amount of people that find a lot of these things equally fascinating. It was just, I just found out yesterday that we just hit over 500,000 downloads on Spotify. Now, that's not including, the episodes that are listened to on the cult. Maybe you're listening to this on the Cult of Conspiracy. I put 2 episodes a week over there to try and lure people into to this way, because I think that within the conspiracy community, it's all doom and gloom and fear. And I want to show people, look, if you don't want to be doom and gloom and fear, and you want to be able to kind of try and garner a better understanding instead of living in that fear resonance, then this is where you come. Because I got tired of living in fear. I got tired of worrying. I got tired that the apocalypse was constantly being mentioned. I got tired that they're never releasing the Epstein files, and, all the wars in Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan and Ukraine, and it's just never ending. It is never fucking ending. So instead of living in that lower vibration of just constantly being skeptical and scared and fearful, maybe this stuff will help you get out of that vibration. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to heighten the vibration through esoteric knowledge and understanding, and better being able to describe who you really are, beyond the human, beyond the name, beyond your job, beyond, your title as mom or dad or daughter or nephew, and beyond that. Those are human things. And as they like to say, we are souls experiencing what it's like to be human. I believe that. So, all right, we're going to get over to that meditation. Of course, Patreon is the only place where we play the meditation at. I still like to add in, some of the after effects of what happens in the meditation. So if you continue listening after this, then that is what has transpired during said meditation. But yeah, Patreon would be the best place to be able to go and do that. So yeah, I'm going to get over there. About to get weird. And so, look, if Perilous came here and he taught you anything, it's that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird. Stay weird. All right, we are back from outer space. It's really what it feels like. You're going into some kind of different spatial environment. that the energy that is you in meditation, whatever you become or whatever you wholly are in there, that is within us all the time. It's almost like we forget about it though, because we get so caught up in, the mundaneness of reality. And that's why I think it's so important to practice meditation daily, as often as you possibly can, because you're not going to overreact. I can only speak from my own personal experience. I notice that whenever I'm not meditating regularly, man, I get frustrated a lot easier. I start succumbing to the mundaneness of real life, what is real life? Of the physical life more than I should. I want to be able to hold the spiritual realm in the highest of regards, and I want to try and be there as much as humanly possible, even whenever I'm not in meditation. And I think that it's all about being able to hold that resonance that you achieve through meditation throughout the rest of your day. If you can hold that, and that's why, there's a lot of practices out there, whether it's religious or spiritual or Buddhist or whatever, why, think about the Muslims. I think the Muslims pray for like 10 minutes, 6 or 7 times a day. That's commitment. That is absolute practice. And I think the Buddhists do something along that nature, and the Hindus as well. They implement meditation regularly. And I see why. Because otherwise, you're going to become of this world. And, especially for people like us that are into this kind of stuff, you're trying to overcome the obstacle that is the illusion of the Maya of the material world. We've accepted now that this all is some kind of illusion. Now, what do you do with it? Do you keep on playing in the illusion? You're going to be like old boy from the Matrix that still wants to eat the steak? I'm not saying that we can't eat steak. Steak is delicious. But you know what I'm trying to say. Like, how do you realize that you're in a game and then you're like, you know what? It's a fun game. I want to keep on playing. Like, that's okay if that's what you want to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But for those of us that are kind of on this searching journey, trying to figure out as much as we can, where we come from, where we're going kind of deal, then I think it's important to look inside yourself for the answers. And the best way to be able to look inside yourself for those answers is during meditation or prayer, whatever, in silence, whatever it is. Meditation doesn't have to be in a lotus position. I can't even contort my legs in that way. One day I hope to. But I'm just sitting here. I'm just in a regular folding chair right now, one that you'd bring to a sporting event. Nothing special. I'm in my sister's garage. It's not like some kind of holy consecrated temple or anything like that. It's hot as hell outside. I got a tiny little fan sitting right here just to get some kind of movement of air in here. But man, whenever you're in that meditation, all of that just collapses. No longer am I sitting in a garage that's hot with a tiny little fan and the birds chirping and the garbage man driving by and cars driving by and people in the house making noise. All that fades away. All that melts away. And you're able to go into like this inner temple. And it's not like make believe. Like there are vibrational resonances that are sent throughout your body that are loving and familiar and wise. What is that? Like if all the woo-woo is just woo-woo nonsense, then why is there stuff to be gleaned from it? And that's why, looking into all these different things is so fascinating, because you can glean a lot from a lot. As I've said before in prior episodes, the reason why I became interested in a lot of this was because I found out that Christianity works and I wanted to see what else works, as a mystical practice and whatnot, to be able to communicate with the divine and the spirits and the spiritual world and your higher self or whatever the case may be. And that is why I am personally on this journey, because I believe that there truly is more than one way to skin a cat. Now, maybe the journey that you're on will lead you to information that excites you more than excites me, or vice versa. But we're all on this journey of discovery. And the main discovery is figure out what you are, why you are, who are you. I was doing a little bit of research before this show because, I knew that this guy was into Christian mysticism. I was like, let me try and look a little bit more into the God's name, as they say, which is Yahweh, which it's not really Yahweh. It's Yod Hey Vav Hey, but really what that means is I am what I am. And I was like, okay, I am that I am, rather. And you look into certain people that like to kind of break that down as far as like, what does all that mean? And I am what I am really kind of breaks down. And I actually took some notes on it earlier. Like, you know what? Let me pull that up here. I was thinking about doing a show on it, and maybe I still will in the future. But so it says in the original Hebrew, the phrase is, and I could be butchering how to pronounce this, but it's Eya Asher Eya. Which means it either means I am that I am, I will be what I will be, or I am becoming what I am becoming. Each of them, like deeper and more mystical, but so essentially it's encompassing the masculine and feminine principles of the duality of oneness. So the masculine would be the initial I am. The feminine would be the principle, the feminine principle of that I am. So it's kind of like the I am is the identity or the form. Look at I am as the form or the logos, right? And that I am is the flow of that form. And this is where you get the mother archetype, the flow, the creation, the movement. And it is the unfolding of the identity. So this is why the lotus is so impactful and powerful within a lot of meditations. If you focus on the lotus, and the goal is to see that it's ever unfolding. It is forever unfolding, infinitely unfolding. It'll never stop unfolding. So I am would be the lotus, I believe. That I am would be the movement, the unfolding, the whatever is going on that is causing it to unfold is the that I am. That would be the feminine principle. The feminine principle is the movement. The masculine principle, or the father, would be the thing that is unfolding. And the two can't go, like, they can't exist without each other, because then it would just be dormant properties. It's like you can have a rock, but a rock will stay in one place for the rest of all time without rain and wind and sleet and snow and volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and all that kind of stuff. And so the unfolding would be the rain and the hurricanes and the snowstorms and the earthquakes and all that kind of stuff. That would be the unfolding. That would be the feminine principle. This is some deep shit, dude. But it rings true, at least to me anyway. So, and it's so crazy that they have to work together. There cannot be masculine without feminine and vice versa. It's a divine oneness. It's a union. So you have I am, which is the knower. This is where it's going to get crazy. I am is the knower, the masculine. That I am is the known. See, you need both. You have to have both. This whole idea of people worshiping the Father, so stupid, so dumb. You need the father and the mother, or the masculine and the feminine, however you want to look at it. Of course, a lot of this really stems from patriarchy. And of course, before that was matriarchy. And I'm sure it's going to go back and forth and back and forth. It's like, one election cycle, you'll get a Republican, then people get tired of the Republican, then they elect a Democrat, people get tired of the Democrat, they elect a Republican, and it's an ever unfolding process. People just don't learn from their prior mistakes. They can't learn and look at politics and be like, wait a second, I was duped like this before. But then there's always that fateful promise that's like, but he or she is going to come in here and change everything. They're going to come in here like Jesus at the bank and start flipping tables and telling everybody that you've turned my father's house into a den of thieves. None of them are doing that. Okay? None of them. I don't care what your belief system is as far as politics go. If you are choosing one side, you are being duped. You are looking at the black square on the chessboard as the good square, and the white board is evil, or the white squares of the chessboard is evil. So dumb. You need both, or you need neither. So I chose to remove myself from the political chessboard, and it's a divine drama is what's going on with all of that. I mean, I would say it wouldn't even be divine. I think it's like a fucking stupid childish plaything. But people, that's the animalistic part of us, that we form like these cultures and these communities that look at everything outside of those cultures or those communities as evil. And it's a never-ending shit cycle of, feces being flushed down a drain, in my opinion. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. So it's essentially like the divine androgyny. And this is where you get, figures and symbols like the Baphomet. And people take that out of context. If you look at it for what it is the full embodiment of the masculine and the feminine. We got to stop looking at these things as surface level evil. We got to get beyond that. That is how they lure you into being scared and being fearful, and now you're embodying this fear vibration, which only makes it easier for them to suck at the teat of your energetic body, and that's not good for anybody. But hey, we're all learning. That's why we do as many episodes as I possibly can, whether it is the Mystic Studies, which hopefully you guys have been enjoying that. Just finished up The Land of the Gods by Helena Petrova Blavatsky. What a great book. Don't know exactly which one I'm getting into next. I don't want to commit yet until right before I'm about to start, because then I'll change my mind, and you know how that whole deal is. But anyway, all right. Well, yeah, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. So I love you.